Yo, how's it going, you guys? It's Marcus Kraber. In this update, we'll talk about the S&P 500. We'll also talk about Tesla stock. Okay, wait a minute here. We can see that we literally broke out to the upside. We were bullish in our last update right here. And we talked about in our last update that we were not only bullish, but we expected price to go up in this kind of a manner. So clearly we got to this area earlier than expected, but we were expecting resistance on this trend. This trend, as a recap, basically was an area of support back here, and then once we broke it with this candle, it became an area of resistance. And so we see that we're hitting this as resistance yet again. So the question is now, are we ready to break out to the upside? And what would be the upside target? Or are we about to get rejected to the downside? Well, let's get into this now. But before we get in this video, if you get any value from this content, don't forget to smash down on the like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, or don't smash the like button or don't subscribe. Let's just get into this now. So this is the S&P 500. Before we jump into Tesla stock, we talked about in our last update, basically, we looked back in history to find an area which had a double gap back to back off of a low bottom that we expected. And we saw back over here, the last occurrence that happened was from over here, about a year ago or so, and we can see that we basically, the next day after that phenomenon, we had a candle that filled the gap to the downside. It was also green. This was kind of our expectation. We know history doesn't repeat exactly, but it could rhyme something similar to this. So we kept that in mind as a potential edge for what would be to come on Monday. And so let's see what happened. Well, we didn't have a massive move to the upside, but we had a pretty wide range day. We didn't quite fill the gap down to the downside, yet we definitely tried. So the two areas that we're watching still is this gap to the downside and also this area of support now. This is this channel here. And for the upside of the resistance, well, first of all, we have this, if we connect some of the dots here, basically this trend here is something like that, if we could make that straight. But the main point is that in the middle of this channel, we have some resistance on a trend line. I'm not so careful where I'm drawing this now because it's not for some time to the upside. And in addition, what's more immediate resistance would probably be this area right here. We have a lot of basically overhead resistance coming up here. And we can see if I extrapolate that to over here, basically in the near future, I'd say we're going to probably be trading in some sort of ascending triangle. That's kind of, I had a guess where price was going to go and what type of moves we were about to see. That's kind of my guess before the next move to the upside or to the downside. And at this point in history, at the moment, as of today, kind of biased to the upside, but as we get more candles and more, we'll see how price action goes. We'll kind of have a more decisive if we are kind of biased to the upside or to the downside, because again, our expectation right now is to continue to trade in somewhat of a sideways motion here. If we break this trend line here, then that's bullish to the upside. That would be a quick period here and then a break to the upside, and that would be bullish. So we'll be watching for that. Let's take a look back at Tesla stock here. What is this trend line right here that we were just talking about before, and why do we think that's the next area to watch, especially if we break through now this area of resistance? That would be the next stop for potentially the highs. And what is that? That is basically what we were watching in the past, and we were actually watching not only in the past that hit these areas here, and basically this is something we watched well beyond these hits alone, because this is something we were watching back over here. This used to be the value line that we were watching in the past when we were covering Tesla stock. And well, we shifted that value line once we broke it to find a new line to watch, and that's literally this purple line down here. So anyway, this was an area, a huge line of support in the past. So we'd expect this to act as some line of resistance in the future. So that's the area that just similar kind of concept of why we expected this to be a line of resistance, and we'd expected a high to be stopped right around this line here. In a similar way, that would be the next area of resistance. So that could be a useful piece of information. One thing to keep in mind though, on Wednesday, if we smash the upside based on fundamentals and stuff, that could be something where we break out to the upside. And once we break out to the upside a little bit higher here, another thing to keep in mind, like once we break out past this area of resistance, we are also talking about new all-time highs. So that is another interesting thing because once we get to this line here, is it going to be a lot of resistance or the fact that we're at new all-time highs, maybe this would just get bought up and we just shoot up to the upside too. So that is something to keep in mind because once we break all old all-time highs over here, then is 1,000 essentially secured is the question. So that is one thing, and that would not be shocking at all to see basically 1,000 price target if we can break this trend. And if we don't break this trend, basically, okay, well, we can get there. It would just, you know, take more time to get there, possibly, right? So, but we are in this parabolic move. If we continue this parabolic move, especially if we get above this trend line, then we expect higher highs. If we are held below this trend line, we'll basically just essentially be waiting until earnings. And when earnings comes, basically, so the move would happen in terms of on the chart would happen Thursday, and Thursday will tell us if we're going to the upside or going to the downside to retrace. And where would we retrace to the downside? Well, we have a trend probably like this, and we also have these moving averages coming to the upside, and we could be testing that moving average once we get there as well. I hope you guys have got some value from this content. If you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll catch you guys in the next one.